here from Bristol-Myers Squibb. You can't have missed them. They've got a brilliant stage over there. It's a sea of orange and bright faces. They're a company that are doing something very special, and I'm not going to tell you about it. It's probably best left to the keynote speaker for this particular session. His name is Mike Furlong. He's Executive Director of Cruiserath Biologics with BMS. They have some really interesting opportunities, and it's a very interesting company. It's doing a huge amount in Ireland and is looking to grow enormously. They have a new facility. I'll let Mike tell you all about what they're doing. Please give Mike Furlong a big round of applause. Thank you.
So just what we're building. So this is our new campus at Cruiserath. Up front here we have the lab office cafeteria complex. Back here, this is really the heart of the facility. That's our large-scale cell culture facility. There'll be 6 15,000-liter bioreactors. So if you're familiar with biologics, the protein of interest is actually growing in living cells. So out of those 6 15,000-liter bioreactors, out of that we'll get about 20 kilos of material out of each one. Back here we have our central utilities building, which gives us all of the power, the light, the steam that we need to run this facility. So a little bit about where we're at. If you're familiar with Blanchardstown, the Terrellstown development, that's where we are. That would be right over here, actually right up here. The front of site here used to be our Cruiserath API facility, active pharmaceutical ingredient. And we decided when the decision was made to start bringing that down that we would bring the biologics facility up on the back of the campus. So you see the LSCC here, the LOC here, our central utilities building. And at site right now, we're coming up around 2,000 construction workers. So if you wonder what all the parking's for, if you start arriving at 6:30 in the morning until about 8:30, we park around 2,000 cars in those 2 hours. So this is what it looked like back a little over a year ago. It was an empty field. And we say that we started construction on August 11th, 2015. Actually, what we did is just drove a backhoe on an empty field to say that we did start construction. What I'm going to do now is just show you a video of what's happened over that last 14 months. Before we get to that, just a little bit from last August to now. About 1.5 million hours worked. You'll see in the video the 11 winter storms. Kind of interesting. A lot of earth moved, a lot of concrete poured, a lot of steel. This is one of my favorite fun facts. Over 80 kilometers of piping will be in the facility. Of that, 60% is orbital welded stainless steel. So there's a lot of complexity involved here. Currently, 1,700 craft labor on site. We'll be up around 2,000 people. So, want to cue the video? So this is what the facility looks like today. Again, from the pictures you saw earlier on, here's where we're at. And from here on out, you're going to see less progress on the outside. We do post these on YouTube. But the amount of activity going on the inside will steadily increase over the next 6 to 8 months. So we can and will build the best facility of its type in the industry. But without the right people to run it, it's not going to go anywhere. So while we're in construction, we have a very large staff that has already started commissioning the facility. But while these two activities are ongoing, we have our operational staff being developed right now. So Noel Heaney, the site general manager, is here today. My job is to build the facility. Noel's job is to run it. So it's a little bit unique in doing this because we're bringing up the staff while the facility is still under construction. But what that means then, when we end up into the product shakedown, that'll be a fully staffed facility. So, what are we looking for? We're looking for a lot of folks. You can see that we ended up last year at around 60 folks. We're currently at around 160, and by the end of this year, hope to be at 190. And then within the first quarter of next year, we want to be around 270, and at the end of 2018, 380 folks. So there is a lot of opportunity with us. So if you remember back to the title slide, it says why we build what we build, why we do what we do. So you've heard a lot about the facility, a lot about our staffing. But the question is why we do these things. So at Bristol-Myers, we're very fortunate right now to have the unique opportunity to bring up a new facility. But the reason why we're bringing up this new facility is actually more important and more exciting. Bristol is at the forefront of what's called immuno-oncology. And what that is our medications allow your body's own immune system to fight cancer. So if you think about that right now, how cancer is treated today, of chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, what it means if we're successful in first-line therapies, that your body's own immune system allows your body to fight that cancer. So these are the two products we have currently in that space, and Opdivo will be the first product in our facility. So right now, Opdivo is currently approved in 57 countries. In the United States, it's approved in 9 different indications. But we're in clinical trials for over 20 different tumor types. So what we say to our folks, to our team, and it really comes from the top down, the CEO of BMS is a physician. Everything we do is all about the patients. So when we come in and work in the morning and you see this facility rising out of the ground and you see the staff we build, it really is about coming in each day for a purpose beyond a paycheck. So to date, I think we've been very successful in developing that staff and developing that culture. But as you see, we're going to need another 230 folks over the next year and a half to help us out. So we've got a booth over here to the left with a great team looking forward to answering all your questions. But thank you so much for your time and attention, and there's going to be a group of us up here right now to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
That's Mike Furlong. As Mike said, we're joined by some other members of BMS to talk about some of the opportunities that are available And as you can see there, it's a company that is exploding here in Ireland, particularly because I think Mike said we have the best people in Ireland, and that's why we see companies like BMS coming here, because the right ethos and the right education, I think, is what Mike says, is why this company is setting up here with an enormous facility and a huge amount of investment, because they want to do things that will make people's lives better. And I think, you know, you can never really underestimate the incredible work that a pharmaceutical company is doing when you're trying to come up with therapies for cancer. So I'm joined on stage by Mairead, who's Director of Manufacturing Science and Technology, Donagh Walls, who is Associate Director, Quality Control Site Operations, and Lisa Cahill, who is the HR Manager. If we wouldn't mind maybe talking a little bit about the people that you guys are looking for, and a little bit about the culture. Maybe Lisa, as a HR manager, this is Careers, maybe you might talk to us a little bit about the people that you're looking for and the people that BMS have within their ranks.
Yeah, so I suppose you could see in the graph there that Mike have, we're really hiring across the board in all areas you'd expect to see in a biopharma company. So we have opportunities in quality, which Donagh will be able to talk to, manufacturing, science and technology, and manufacturing as well. And what I think is quite unique about BMS at the moment is we're hiring a lot of graduates. So within QC and manufacturing in particular, up to 70% of the workforce will be graduates directly from colleges around Ireland, Europe, the US. So it's a really good opportunity. As well as that, on the culture side of things, what I find really exciting at the moment is being involved in a startup. It's fun, it's fast-paced, and it's challenging. But the experiences you gain from being involved in the startup is next to none. And then on from that, when we get into operations, BMS really is, I think what sets us apart is we value people's career development. I, for example, started in BMS directly from college, and I'm going to pick on Noel again, our general manager. Noel did an interesting interview recently, and I found out something I thought was fascinating. Noel has worked for BMS for 23 years, and he's actually never held a role for more than 3 years. And I think that really shows how BMS values its employees. It gives people opportunities to move to different areas. Noel actually spent some time in the US, so being a global company, there's plenty of opportunities there for development and growth.
And just to add to that, Jonathan, I came into BMS in February, and you know, I had spent a number of years in another company, and it was a big move for me to move into BMS. And I have to say, it's been a great experience, you know, in BMS. The patient focus is incredible. You know, I think unfortunately, so many people in Ireland have been touched with cancer, have had loved ones. My own mother passed away with cancer, and my dad had cancer as well. And so it resonates certainly with me, and also the team as well, around what we're doing has really meaningful, and we're giving back to society as well. So, you know, I'm delighted. You know, I've joined the BMS team. It's a really exciting team. I think you just have to look across at the booth. There's over 20 people. It's one of the biggest stands here, and it just displays the commitment of the team to bringing this site up and running.
Yeah, and there's a lot of you, and there's a lot of young people as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? You know, Lisa talked about being in a startup. I've worked in a few startups myself, and there's a real energy about it. It's a real buzz. But as Lisa kind of touched on, there's opportunities around you because you're given probably sometimes maybe a little bit more responsibility than you might otherwise have had, because you know you're still trying to hire it. So look, will you look after that? So that idea of opportunity is quite big, and in amongst BMS on a global scale, there is a lot of opportunity. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you know, I'm from the Manufacturing Science and Technology group, and as we're building that group, we do need experienced people, but we also do need graduates as well. And as we build out those teams, there's huge opportunity for people to progress to the next level. As Lisa mentioned, we will have career ladders in place for folks that can develop technically and also as people managers as well. So there's great opportunities for folks in the years ahead.
When someone gives their CV to you, what do you think you're really looking for, Lisa? What needs to be on that CV? I mean, there's a lot of companies here saying, look, our doors are open to anyone. What needs to be on that CV for you to say, this is someone we want?
Yeah, so for us, technical ability is obviously important. So the majority of our roles, level 7, would be the minimum entry level. But really for us, it's more than the CV, it's about behaviours. So we have 4 BMS behaviours, and I think if you talk to anyone on the stand today, you'll see it. Passion, innovation, accountability and speed. And for us, that's really key to seeing candidates when we meet them for interview or when our recruiters give people a call. Just even having that chat on the phone, getting your behaviours across. As well as that, I suppose, how do you get that onto a CV? If you're coming from college, if you don't have work experience, a lot of people can struggle, say, what do I put on my CV? It's being able to demonstrate teamwork, where you're involved in projects in college, presentations, and then those of you who have industry experience, obviously you'll have experiences like that from previous roles.
Donagh, do you want to talk a little bit about SkillsNet and
Sure.
a little bit about the culture in general at BMS? Because I think when you have an opportunity to work in a company like BMS, which has sort of global strands, there's a huge amount to travel and experience, but also cross-train in a way that you probably might not be able to with a smaller company.
Absolutely, and I think what BMS offers its employees, it's the opportunity to develop. So BMS is really committed to that development. And SkillNets is a really good example of that. So for people who aren't aware of what our SkillNets program is, BMS proactively engage with the Nyberg training facility to identify people who are either graduates or within other industries that would like to cross-skill and train up in the biopharma area. And they have facilitated an 8-week training course where people can train up in the biopharma industry and get a 3-month placement within BMS. And that initiative has already kicked off with the Cruiserath facility. We've had a number of placements, and I myself and my own team have hired 3 people permanently out of that SkillNets placement. So BMS are very proactive in that regard. And then, touching on your point about culture, so Mike's already pointed out the focus that we have in BMS on people, and that's both patients. You can't walk 10 yards within our facility without seeing a life-size poster of a patient and seeing their story. And it's highly motivating to everybody that works there, but also the people within our facility and the development opportunities that we have here. So again, personalizing it to my own team, I've only had people on site in the last 6 months, and half the team have already been sent to the United States for training there. We've been sending
Whereabouts, Donagh?
So we have facilities in Boston, in Syracuse, in Manatee, all across the New Jersey area. And BMS is a global company, so we have facilities all around the world. But mainly we've been focusing on the Boston and Syracuse sites, and that experience is invaluable. And Lisa might talk in a bit more detail about some of the development opportunities that we've given to some of our API colleagues. So
when you talk about going over to Boston to train, I mean, that's obviously a hugely valuable personal experience, but obviously professional one as well. Are you talking about people who have, are at managerial level, or who goes over to Boston to do training?
That's a really good question. So it's a whole cross section.
Really?
A good example of that is some of our colleagues that worked in the facility, the API facility was there before we built our new facility, and a large proportion of them decided to stay on and cross-train. So again, they were facilitated with training in Nyberg, but then themselves and their families were sent to Boston to train for 6 months. So that's a huge investment.
Absolutely, and if you're a graduate straight out of college, to get to experience that and be paid for it, and upskill at a company that's really investing, I think that's hugely valuable. You were talking about walking through the corridors and not everywhere you go seeing a picture of patients, and I think that's that's really, really, really important, because at a pharmaceutical company, sometimes even in the pharma industry, when you speak to people that sometimes they lose focus on that idea of patients. Would you mind, for some people, maybe give a bit of overview of the medicine, Mike? Like, what is so exciting about these new products for cancer patients? Maybe talk to people about the reality of what cancer is like for people who are getting traditional treatments, and what BMS are doing.
Yeah, so my wife is a cancer survivor, and what struck me was I went to her first chemotherapy appointment, and the nurse came in with this bag, and she put on a 1/4-inch thick set of rubber gloves to hook this up to an IV and then put it in my wife's arm. So she wore those gloves to protect herself from the chemotherapy that was about to go around my wife's body. So if you think about cancer treatment in the past or even currently, you have chemotherapy, you have surgery, you have radiation. And for those of you who know a cancer survivor or perhaps are one yourself, you know that those things can be as damaging to the patient as the cancer can. And it's devastating to the families as well. BMS is one of several companies that are working in immuno-oncology, and it's a fantastic time to be in science, to be in this industry, because these therapies allow your own body to fight that cancer. And there are a number of our patient videos on our website and YouTube. I encourage you to go look at these. But as metastatic melanoma, so skin cancer, was one of the first indications for Yervoy. That used to be a death sentence.
Yeah.
There are people now who are on our therapies that are alive 5 years after their diagnosis. So we live in an amazing time in medicine, and the unique opportunity with BMS here in Ireland is very rarely in your career do you get to develop a new facility with this product portfolio, and to be on the ground floor. It's like being in a startup but in a major multinational company. It's a tremendous opportunity and a very unique one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing's for sure, that bigger organizations are trying to understand how to hold on to talent and give them opportunities. But I think also they're understanding that they have people for a time. They want to get them in the door, train them up, and hopefully show them ways to progress. And it seems from speaking to you guys that there are a lot of opportunities for them to go other places. But to start off at a place that is at the cutting edge in terms of facility, that must be hugely beneficial, Mairead, for someone to be in somewhere that is at the cutting edge. It gives them a great passport to go places, both careers in years to come when they decide to move on, whether it's in BMS or otherwise. What does a new facility mean? Apart from a big shiny building that we saw, what does that mean to a person?
Yeah, so from a person point of view, we're a startup. So as a consequence of that, at the moment we're a small organization that will grow. We're, as Mike said
I'll
earlier,
get you to hang on. The voice of God can't beat that. Go ahead, sorry.
So at the moment we're building the team. There's 160 people in the team at the moment. So in terms of the startup, you get exposure to all different technologies. Even within my own group, we have a small laboratory out in Nybert, but it has state-of-the-art capability in that we have upstream, downstream, and analytical in the same laboratory. So as a consequence of that, cell culture scientists are learning from purification scientists, analytical scientists are learning things about bioreactors that they'd never get experience to before. So it's really because everybody's starting out at the same platform, if you like. People are learning off each other purely from a technical level, but also because you're getting in at the start. In future, as those teams expand, there's opportunities for people management and people development as well.
Yeah, and I think that, that you made that point, and I don't know if anyone is familiar what's going on in the upper levels of both universities and major organizations. They're sort of seeing a real importance of exposure to what other people are doing. So maybe 20 years ago, organizations would have siloed off, you're this particular type of engineer, you're this particular type of scientist, you're a marketing person, so whatever. And they're realizing that actually there needs to be an overlap. You need to be exposed to other things, not only to get better skills, but also to understand how the other people work. And if you're working in a multidisciplinary group, it's hugely beneficial to allow to transition to presumably to another type of, if you want to do a different type of science, or if you want to do a different type of engineering, if you're working in those small groups, you get exposure to a lot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because often the best scientists are those scientists have had the most exposure, and by having a team together in the same same laboratory, it gives people great exposure to learn from other people. Like, today I'm running a column, tomorrow you look someone beside you is running a bioreactor, so there's great learnings that people can get from each other.
You were talking about Nybert there. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about some of the training opportunities that people have?
Yeah, sure. Donagh mentioned the SkillNets course earlier.
Yeah.
In addition, when the decision was made to start the Cruiserath Biologics plant, some of our folks came across from the API, or the original API plant in Cruiserath, transferred over into the Biologics. And they
Did you say some of our folks?
Yeah, so they were.
You're totally picking up his terminology. That's Mike. That's a Mike influence right there.
So some of the API staff transferred over into the Biologics, and I think we mentioned it already. So there was a Nybert training course for a couple of weeks, and then the guys moved across to the States, to Boston, for that training as well. We also have, as I mentioned, the small-scale lab. So we're doing small-scale model development, process development in the future. So a lot of the development work in the laboratory, and then of course we had SkillNets as well.
Donagh, do you want to talk a little bit about what it's like day to day working in BMS? How is it different from working in the places you might have worked before? And what's your, is there it very structured in terms of hierarchy? And can you knock on Mike's door and say, I got a problem, or maybe talk about like what it's like working day to day in BMS?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think the hierarchical thing is the piece that actually struck me the most when I started in BMS. My first week, I was in the canteen, and the first person that sat down to me, a nice guy, chatted away to me, no airs or graces, and it turned out that was Noel, general manager, and I had no idea it was the general manager until a week later. And there's no
that could be good and bad.
Yeah.
Pass me the mop?
It's okay.
No, I'm the CEO of this company. I'm not passing you the mop.
Yeah. So, but there's no airs or graces on people there, and I think it's, as you talked about this cross-functional nature, it's important that there is a lot of that collaboration, especially in the startup, and that's what gives you the experience that's unique about the startup, and it's really valuable for your CV. And the culture in BMS is very important as well. So that work-life balance. I've worked in a number of different companies across the biopharma industry, and I don't think any of them have ever got that work-life balance perfectly right. And BMS, I think, are definitely on the right track. This brand new facility, they're incorporating a gymnasium as part of the facility. So they're very focused
gym
on
on
the employees.
site, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they're trying to strike that balance, and I think they're doing a really good job.
And I think
Lisa, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, just to add, like on the hierarchical structure, our new facility is completely open plan, so nobody in the facility has an office, and we've started operating in that structure now. And what I really find is things get done so much more quickly because we're all sitting in the same area. You can stand up and shout over the desk to someone two desks down rather than sending an email. So it really helps with moving quickly, but as well as that, like Mairead said, learning from other people. I sit beside some guys from manufacturing, so working in HR, I start to pick up on some of the terminology from them.
Yeah, and presumably because is there a good social scene then? Because if everybody could see each other, then presumably any romances in BMS? I was told not to ask that.
I won't start spreading any rumours on the stage. No,
that's not what they offer, by the way. That's not part of the. If you work for BMS, they're not offering dating services. Okay.
Yeah, we have a really good social scene. We've had a number of social outings. We were a few weeks ago actually at Oktoberfest, which was some good fun. As well as that, we had some casino nights out. We'll have a great Christmas party as well. So It's good social scene, and people really do get on together. A lot of people, even in the new facility, have transferred from other parts of the business. They've been with BMS a long time. And then we have a lot of new people as well to the organisation. So everyone's mixing together really well.
I'm sure there are some questions from the audience. If anyone wants to raise their hand, and we'll get the microphone to you. We'll continue chatting on, but if you want to ask any questions about opportunities at BMS or anything about the new facility or culture, do let us know. I want to talk a little bit about opportunities and entry points. So you're obviously looking for graduates, but what other type of people are you looking for?
So we're also looking for people with PhD backgrounds. So as I mentioned, we have a development group. So we're looking for people that have done PhDs. Really a broad range. We're very open-minded. If you have a science background, please come and talk to us. That's my message, really. So
when you say science background, you mean any type of science?
Science, so
like psychology?
Yeah, good point.
It's not
John.
a science.
So more the engineering, the biology. If you've done purification and biochemistry, all those are very relevant, and they're exactly the type of courses that we're looking for, and people that have that type of experience.
And so why would a scientist choose somewhere like BMS over continuing a career in academia, or maybe working for another pharmaceutical? Lisa, maybe you might, why BMS over other, because this is the center of pharma in Europe pretty much. Why BMS over the other big companies that are here?
That's a good point. Ireland has really become a hub for pharma, and in the last few years in particular in the biologic space. But I suppose why BMS? I think Mike's presentation covered it pretty well. The patients,
Excuse me.
The products that we have, and the people, and that's the team actually of our stand here today. Mike spoke about their immuno-oncology products. I don't think there can be anything more inspiring than working on medicines that are saving people's lives.
Mike?
We know that we're in a very competitive environment in Ireland, so we will staff the plant. But then our challenge then is to keep the people that we have. And the best way to do that is to make sure that people enjoy coming into work in the morning for the work they do, for the people they work with, for the respect given their ideas and their input. So we know the challenge is ahead of us, but that's the environment that we're creating, that you do look forward to coming to work because you're making a difference and you're working with people that you enjoy working with.
How are you going to find all of these people? You did a slide there, Mike, and the scale of everything that's happening here is very impressive. You got 150, 160 people now. You went 380 in less than 2 years. How are you going to find all those people? Maybe you might pitch in general to this one.
Well, events like this, but I would say since we've hired that initial 150, we're getting more folks from referrals of folks or folks who are already in BMS. So they come, they enjoy what they're doing, they enjoy who they're doing it with, and they'll call 2 friends. And we have yet to miss a hiring target. And
Okay.
I would say across the functional areas,
You have yet to miss a higher target?
we've made every quarterly target we've had.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive.
And just to add that one of the folks in my group, Michelle Maloney, was hired from Cruiserath. So she met some of the folks from the team and then went on to interview and was successful, very successful. So career events like this are very important to us. They're a great way of meeting people, talking around what are the opportunities in BMS. So
There's a huge mass of orange volunteers there who can answer any questions that you have. I can see some of them have bunked off there to have a watch the talk. I think that Mike will probably let you off. Are there any questions from the floor? If not, don't forget, the guys are here. They can answer any questions. If you want to just maybe finally recap, Lisa, on the areas, because you said any level, it seems like you're looking to speak to people. What are the areas, there's manufacturing jobs at the moment. What other, science, manufacturing, what else?
Yeah, across the board. So for really scientists and engineers within quality, manufacturing, engineering, maintenance, Mairead's team, manufacturing science and technology, supply chain, the warehouse, we actually have open roles at the moment as well. So it's really across the board. What I'd say is, and we have leaflets over at our stand, go on to our website, bmscareers.ie, and all the openings are advertised there. And keep an eye on the website over the next number of months. You could see in Mike's graph, we have about, I think, 80 or 90 people to recruit in Q1 next year. So there's going to be a lot of positions continually going up on the website there. So keep an eye on the website.
Look, we're delighted to have you here, and it's really exciting to see what you're doing in Cruiserath. And it's great to see that sort of investment from a large company like that happening here and creating opportunities across the board in Ireland. They're a great company. We're delighted to have them. If you want to have a chat with them, they're over there. Please give them a round of applause. That's the BMS team. Thank you.